Maybe you have to talk to
Uh,
the staff sir, about it.
okay, that's early, man. It's cold. It's winter.
Okay,
So
sir.
no problem. Okay, let me okay. So what did we do last time? Where did we left off last time?
Um, I don't really remember, sir.
You don't remember what we
No, sir.
okay. How many students we have in this class?
3 of us, sir.
Three. And they're all located there at the building, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me try to open this. Where am I here? Third year. So I should go here. Where am I? Okay, where am I? Okay. Okay, so we last, well, some of you have had me last year, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not all of you.
I don't really know. I think so. I think
Okay.
we all part of the class.
Okay, so today, let's, where am I? Okay, let me just do this here, do the slide. Go here, and then go back here to, share screen. Let me do that now. Share the screen, so do this. Okay, share screen, okay. Okay, so you can see that up there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, since you guys are on the third, I mean, we've looked at developmental issues, we've looked at a lot of stuff. I want to be a little more specific now in terms of looking at the individual interacting with the environment. And there are different theories and different views about how that happened and how that interaction shapes our personalities. And so what I want to expose you to the various theories and the various views of how that happened. And so we're going to be looking then at the interpersonal well-being and then look at two areas. That is, look at behavior and then look at the Marxian Karl Marx theory. I mean, you must have heard in the United States, we're basically a capitalist society. Jamaica probably might be a mixture of that, a mixture in the sense of a socialist mixture of socialism and capitalism. So, for example, Cuba would be categorized as a what? How would you categorize the political system of Cuba?
Socialize.
Huh?
Socialize.
No, Cuba will be categorized politically as a communist country.
Yes, sir. That's what I mean.
Okay. Good. So Jamaica, once upon a time, tried a combination. When I lived in Jamaica, it was a combination. It was referred to as democratic socialism. So they didn't really want to be fully communist, but they didn't want to be, just capitalists. So they did a combination of that. So Michael Manley referred to it back in the 1970s, 75, 76, around there, as the democratic socialism. So some Caribbean countries may still, Grenada, for example, I'm not sure what Haiti would be categorized as, but so that's what, when you talk about Marxists, that's what Marxian theory, that's what you really be talking about. So we'll be looking at that theory and others in terms of how it helps to shape us as a human being. Essentially, shape our behavior, shape how we see ourselves within the larger context. So that's basically, and I think that might give you a better grasp as to how the impact of how communities such as the church, which is a community of people, a group of people held together with a particular belief, how that shaped their belief system. Okay? So if you have any questions, so I want to start out with a passage of scripture. And that's in Amos, in the book of Amos in the Old Testament, one of the minor prophets. I don't necessarily, kind of like those categorizations of major prophets and minor prophets. I don't think Amos would appreciate you categorizing him as a minor and categorizing Jeremiah as a major. Those are just human constructs, ways of us trying to do things. But maybe to those guys, they may have thought, what, we're all prophets, sent by God. How dare you categorize me as a minor and then categorize as a major, And I think our categorization might be because they probably have more writings, I guess, or their books a little bigger. But so we may need to be very careful about when we start, making those kinds of categorizations of people's work, because I'm sure Amos' work is just as important as Isaiah or Jeremiah or Ezekiel or Daniel. So, but anyway, that's for another day, another class. But in this particular passage, and I use the King James Version here. Whenever you see me use the Bible, and the Bible is when I say Bible, the translation is mentioned, like the NKJV, meaning the new King James Version. When you don't see that, it means I'm using the American Standard Version. But whenever you see me actually go through the trouble of listing it, it means that it is not the American. So that's why I list that there. So he said, hear this. You who swallowed up the needy, the poor, he's talking about the rich folks, and make the poor man, the poor of the land, saying, and the poor of the land, sorry, making the poor of the land fail. I'm skipping that. So that sounds like Marx, isn't it?
Sounds like what?
Marx, the guy at the top here. Let me underline for you.
Yes, sir.
Let me underline for you. Oh no. I didn't need to, see, someone said I could do it, but then I want this is the one at the top.
Yes, sir.
Marxian, Marx. That's the guy who was a Russian guy. Russia is a communist country. He was one of those persons who developed that system. He developed that system. So Amos is simply saying, you make the poor of the land fail. In other words, if you think about this, in America, I would say about 5% of the people in America own about 90% of the wealth, okay? Like the Bill Gates of the world. You follow?
Yes,
I
sir.
would suspect in Jamaica that probably a small group of people in Jamaica own maybe more than 80% of the wealth in Jamaica. A little handful of people. And the
Yes,
rest
sir.
of the Jamaicans are fighting for the little crumbs that's left. You follow?
Yes, sir.
And their children, like Bill Gates' children and grandchildren, will be born wealthy for the rest of their life. And there are people in America who can't buy bread. You follow? Have nothing for the rest of their lives, and their children will go on being that way. So that's what Amos is trying to say here, what was going on. So verse 5 is saying, when will be the full moon will pass, that we may sell grain. In other words, they're looking for the spring and the summer, so they could sell and make more money. And the Sabbath, that we may trade wheat, making an ephod small and the shekel large. Look at what it says. Look, I underline it for you. Falsifying the scales by deceit. Then it was when you go to the store, when you think you're getting a pound, you're getting half pound, because the scale is saying a pound, but actually what you're really getting is half a pound. So Amos is talking about a system that is so corrupt, but it is at the expense of who? The poor. So, and then in verse 6 says that we may buy, say the reason that they're cheating to make more money, that they may buy the poor for silver. You're talking about a slavery system, a slave. If you have enough money, you can buy enough slaves. Once upon a time in Jamaica, there were slaves. There were slaves in Haiti. As a matter of fact, the French, in the United States, in England, people were sold as property. And so, and then it says in the latter part of verse 6, and the needy, look at it, for a what? A pair of sandals. What do you think about that? What do you guys think about that? Selling a human being so you can get a pair of sandals, pair of sneakers. What do you?
Well, sir, now the thing is that someone has to sell them for this pair of sandals.
What do you say?
The verse says that we may buy the poor for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. It is true that the richest man is going to buy them.
Exactly.
But the one now who is selling them for a pair of sandals, he needs to be condemned too.
Well, if I own you and you're my property,
this one should be a poor trying to gain wealth too.
Well, but how are you going to? You have nothing. You have to have denarii. You gotta have money, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. But that's doing business here.
No, but that's what the capitalist system is. That's what Marx is simply saying. That's what the rich would say. The rich would say the reason you're poor is because you're lazy.
Yes, sir.
And they will quote the Bible that says, if you don't work, you don't eat. And they'll quote the Bible verse. Bill Gates would tell you, look, I worked. But let me say something to you. That poor people work longer hours and harder hours and make less than the man who don't work. You just push a button.
I believe it goes both ways, sir.
Which way did it go? Explain it both ways.
All right. Many of the persons that are poor, some of them are not willing to do any kind of effort at all. They are just like waiting on somebody to do something, or trying to get another opportunity. Some of them are just like all the time gambling, hoping that one day they will, make jackpot. Now I
Well,
can understand that some also are working for those that are rich people. They are making them like to be richer and richer. As they are working for them, they are just getting a payment that is not even able to answer to their needs. So what I'm basically saying is that those that are wealthy for the moment, at a point in life, they had to work really hard in order to reach their position now and
let me
not
ask,
people who work with.
let me ask you this. The Queen of England, do you see where she lives?
No, but
Buckingham
I
Palace.
suppose she's living in England.
The Queen of England, she has a, whatever it is. Where did she work? She exploit the Caribbean, exploit slavery of people who made her that way. Therefore, she has inherited wealth. She doesn't have to work. What does Queen Elizabeth do? You work every day. Your parents work every day, don't they? They don't have a mansion. Do you think your parents are lazy?
No, sir, that's what I'm saying.
But they
Because
work
now,
every day.
my parents now, they at a point in life, they were working really hard,
Yeah, but
to
what I'm
give
saying,
their education and everything.
what I'm saying to you is that Bill Gates' children will never have to work for the rest of their life.
Yes, sir. Same thing.
You
But
will have to work.
Bill Gates had to work at a point in time.
Well,
You know?
that is true, but the system though is of such that you're going to have the haves and the have-not. And the reason, which we will see, which we're going to get to, and you raise a good point, is that part of the reason that some people may feel hopeless is because of the way they were socialized in the system. They look at what they cannot have.
Yes, sir.
And therefore they resign themselves to that failure. So the system is in fact what's shaping that headset. So for example, some countries like in Cuba have free medicine for everybody. In the United States, you can, but if you don't have any money, you're not going to get any care. You follow? So there are different, in Canada, everybody is entitled for health care. The government provides that. In other countries, you don't have it, you die. So really, it's not the people, it's the system. And what we're looking at is how the system helped to shape your vision of yourself. So for example, in some countries, maybe United States, certain part of this country, where a Black man is not safe, where the Black man may feel that he's inferior because the white part of the society says that he is. In the 1960s, a Black man could not, in a bus, the public transportation, he had to get up and allow the white man to sit, or he has to sit in the back of the bus. Do you feel that that would help to shape a Black child's personality over time?
Kind of difficult.
Why you find it difficult? That was 1965. That's not too long ago.
Yes, sir.
Where a Black man in a public bus, if the bus is empty, he could pick any seat he wants. But as white folks start coming up, he has to stand up and let them sit. There was a sign, there's something built in a restaurant. You had to sit a certain place. If you wanted to go to the Black person wanted to go to the bathroom, He was not allowed to use, they had a bathroom for black people and black people, one for white people. There were churches of Christ in America in the 60s, where there was a black bathroom and a white bathroom.
Jesus Christ.
And not only was there a white bathroom and a black bathroom, whenever if a black preacher was preaching at that congregation, he could not look the white women in their face. He could pull his head down like this, because they may want to come up to him and say he did a good sermon. He could not. And he could not sit in the front of the church building. He had to sit in the back. In the churches of Christ now. I'm not talking about other denominations. I'm talking about churches of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1960s.
At that time, they were not using the Bibles.
They were using the Bible. How do you think you got the Bible?
So.
Let me ask you this. How do you think the Bible got to Haiti? How do you think the Church of Christ doctrine got to Haiti? Who brought it to Haiti? The churches of Christ started where?
I don't know.
It started in a place called Bush Run in Virginia by a guy called Alexander Campbell.
So that's the reason why I said I don't know.
But listen
normally,
to me.
Normally, it is from Acts chapter 2. We have the history.
Yeah. But I want to take you outside of Acts chapter 2, and I want to tell you that Alexander Campbell owned slaves in Virginia. Alexander Campbell was baptized by a Baptist preacher because he believed the Bible and knew he had to be baptized, and he went and got a Baptist preacher to baptize him. And he started he was a Presbyterian. His father was a Presbyterian preacher. And he was a Presbyterian himself. And he read the Bible and understood the Bible and started what we now know as the Churches of Christ. But he was a slave owner, even while he was a Church of Christ preacher.
So is there any possible way that I could get this history, sir?
I would think you guys haven't been teaching that there. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I don't know nothing about that. I just know that.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of a guy called Dr. Martin Luther King?
Yes, sir, I do.
Why do you think he was killed in America? He was a Baptist preacher. Why do you think he was killed?
Maybe for the Reformation.
No, he was killed because he was teaching that Black people and white people are one and that they should live together. And that the white people in America were saying, no, you are inferior. You're not human. And they killed him. So January 18th, in America, they celebrate his birthday every year.
January 18th.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting that you're from Haiti, right?
Yes, sir.
So are there brethren there in the audience who are from Jamaica this morning? Are you all from Haiti?
I believe Brother Richard Roy is from Jamaica.
Huh? You're from Jamaica?
I'm here, sir.
Yes. So let me ask you then, do you understand this topic? Do you understand that once upon a time that Jamaica was a place where Black people were slaves under the British system?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, all right. I was just kind of curious. That seemed like I was talking a foreign language here. That you guys.
No, sir. I understand everything you're saying, but
okay.
I still can't believe, like, in the church, as you have said, not even in denominations, in the Church of Christ, who claims that we are using the Bible and we are trying to do everything as they are said in the book, then now within us, there could be racism. I just can't understand that. Because
but
the Bible
still,
doesn't.
Brother Solane, it still happens. Racism in the Church of Christ still happens.
Well, then I'm sorry for those who believe in that then. For those who are still doing it.
The point the point that we're going to eventually be going to is to show you how the community, the cultural makeup of that community, the political makeup of that community, the religious makeup of that community shaped our personality over time. So for example, in the area that we are in now, what's going to happen is, for example, where the gay and lesbian, where two men can get married, over time, that's going to shape how people see themselves and how they feel about themselves. There are young men. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a point to make, sir.
Yeah, go right ahead.
What I think is that when like people will talk and say the black and the white, I think they are sound a bit racist, like when they are putting the category as a black man or as a white man, where I know that the skin grows melanin, right? And in some countries, people their skin don't grow melanin as to the white. They don't grow melanin. So I don't think nobody is black or white.
Well, I mean that will be a denial though of the reality that there are light-skinned people and there are dark-skinned people. I think the point that you're making, that you should be making, is that we are all still God's children and that we should all be treated with respect and we should all be honoring each other. So that's the lesson. But to say that they don't exist would be in denial, because
no, I'm not saying that it don't exist, but when people get up to talk, they will say a black man or a white man. That I know they are just categorizing them as black or white, which God did not make a black man or a white man. He made human beings.
Well, I mean, but that's an old problem though. I mean, Peter refused to go to Cornelius because Cornelius was of a different race. Jonah refused to go to Nineveh because of who those people were. The Samaritans were treated as dogs. And Jesus went to them and they were shocked, you know? So there's always been distinction, and that there has been the rich and there has been the poor. There has been people of different race. There are people who differentiate themselves by virtue of their religion. For example, the Muslim religion is at war with the Christian faith. So there's always that distinction. But for this particular lesson, the point that I want you to get is that when a person is being socialized a certain way, it will have an impact on their personality in terms of their sense of well-being, who they see themselves as. Yeah.
So when they socialize themselves as different people, does culture overrules what God has said before?
No, I think that culture should be respected, but when that culture violates the will of God, then there's a problem. For example, in the Caribbean, for example, in the early days of missionaries were coming in some of the smaller islands. For example, women would bathe, wash their clothes in the river, and they would bathe in the river because you're right there. And they dressed different. When the missionary came, though, the missionary thought that was loose living. That was immoral living. That was bad living. Well, they come from a country where they had their own private bathroom and everything else. You follow? Yes, so they try to superimpose their culture and make it a religious thing, which it was not. Because when you don't have, when your outdoor plumbing is the river itself, and that's how you were raised, therefore you have no problem. So you may find a mother and her son all bathing in the river, and they're washing clothes in the river. But, you know, where these people are coming from, you know, their life by then was a little different. And they forgot that before America was developed, America was like that in a certain way. But it depends on where you are culturally. So where we are culturally now, you have young girls who now want to be boys. And they're taking medication. And as a matter of fact, these young girls are actually doing surgery, cutting their breasts off. It's not because they have cancer, because they want to be a boy. So they have their breast surgically removed. And so over time, this sort of cultural behavior going to shape how kids down the road see themselves. So that's the point. But primarily the point that I want you to see here is looking at some of these various theories and to see how some of these theories, in fact, do change how people think and feel about themselves. And what Amos is talking about here is a society where the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. So that's kind of where Amos is, in fact, interacting. Oh, okay, wait, you mean time went that fast and we haven't even got started?
Yes, I think the conversation is too interesting, you know?
Huh? Well, but yeah, well, we will, but I want you to come back to this passage, you know, look at it where, you know, and in this society that Amos is presenting here, it's a society where people love things and use people. This is a society that Amos is talking about. And so if you're socializing that in that society and you're part of the haves, part of the people that do have the power, that do have the money, do have the wealth, you're going to define those who don't differently. And over time, those who don't may develop a sense of inferiority, a sense that they are lower, a sense that they are different. And so what the gospel does, what we're going to see with the gospel though, the gospel empowered. Remember Jesus said he broke down the walls of division? That's what the gospel does. It neutralizes, so that we are now all in one family. And we now socialize in one family where we now can respect and honor each other. So it's not about, remember James talk about, and we'll see this from James, where James talks about in James chapter 2, the rich man comes in and they give him the best seat in the house. And the poor man, they went and got the poor man up and said, you got to move up, go sit in the back, let the rich man. This was in the church in the first century. And yes, James addressed that. What I'm saying to you today, that shapes the way people think over time. If the Pope came to Jamaica right now, they'll probably give a holiday. If the Pope came to Jamaica to visit, they will probably close the country down and there'll be a holiday. And then they'll have school children out on the street in the sun waiting to the wave to see the Pope.
To see the
Pope, the Roman Catholic.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
If he came to America today, they will probably stop Jamaica down, shut it down so that school children can go out on the street and wave to see the Pope. Why do you think the Pope is that important? Because we have made him that important. Not because God made him that important. The society have made him that important. So, no problem. So anyway, so we will continue this discussion, but for this, you need to remember that what we're looking at is how these belief systems shape the person's personality, how they see themselves. And that is important. So we will be talking about empowerment. We'll be talking about the power of the grace to change human beings, how we see ourselves and how we feel about each other, basically. Okay, so we ended, right? We come to the chapel, a different class, I think. Let me, any question before we shut it down?
No,
Well, sir, I believe we'll talk about it. It's now 8 o'clock.
Okay, so let's shut this down.
Another class.
Okay, so let's
don't end the meeting, Celine. Just
how do
allow
end it?
brother.
You have to end it. How do you just go ahead and do that?
You can leave it, sir.
Okay, right, good.
Press the
just
red button.
okay, right. Okay, yeah, got you.
Yes, sir. This class seems to be quite interesting.
But the brother is coming too late to class.
Yeah, man, and sometime man, it does not organize itself as